Welcome back, baseball fans, to the end of the 1977-80 regular season. Do a playoffs preview bit here, along with scheduling involved with that, and the look at some individual performances and team performances in the Fall League for the 1977-80 season. And we'll start right into the American League. The Boston Red Sox are your defending world champions. They do repeat in the division, though this division was a toss-up for most of the year, and nobody ran away and hid. And the team you really should pay attention to the most is at the very bottom here. The Toronto Blue Jays finished a very respectable 15-17. That, to me, that's like winning 100 baseball games in a regular Major League Baseball season for what they had to accomplish. I mean, they're set up to fail against an Orioles, Red Sox, and Yankee team from 1977 and 80 that was always set up to win divisions and won divisions. And the Red Sox didn't during this time, but they arguably were one of the better teams in this division. The Blue Jays just were a tough out. And because they were winning a nice percentage a game and were not a doormat, it meant that these teams had to, like rats in a cage, had to eat each other up here, and all three teams don't make it. And the Yankees, a team with 2 World Series rings in this timeline, can't even finish at 500 in a bizarre set of circumstances. So Boston wins this division with the lowest seeding of a 4, and Baltimore does get the wild card with the lowest seeding of 6, just 2 games over 500. Let's move to the next division here, the American League North, and here is your Cinderella story of the year. The Ohio Players win this division 21-8. You play 7 series best of 5 or 4, which means they won every series they played. 7 times 3 is 21. So Ohio won every series they played all year. They only lost 8 games within those 7 series. Unbelievable. But remember, what they're doing is they're playing their division a possible 30 of 34 games, and only they play the out of division 4 other times. So I'm pretty sure they probably beat this Expo team 10 straight, if I had to guess, knowing how terribly the Expos, who have the worst record in baseball, and Ohio has the best record in baseball. So that's kind of how you see it. This division plays this division when they're not playing each other. And you look at the net wins, +3, +5, and back to +4, +2. So the East netted 2 wins over this division. And so I'm guessing Ohio won their encounters and the other teams did not. But anyway, Ohio's your number 1 seed. Deserving Detroit just missed the playoffs. It's a shame they probably did not beat Ohio and didn't beat the Expos enough, I guess, and maybe they lost their interleague series against the American League East. They're only a game over 500. Baltimore's 2, so they missed the dance. All right, and then the Midwest and West. Interesting year for the Milwaukee Brewers. They put it all together suddenly. That pieces are there, of course, but the winning wasn't there. And then if you take the Milwaukee Brewers out of the American League East, away from the Orioles, Red Sox, and Yankees, give them their own division, you can call this the George Brett, Robin Yount division, because you've got George Brett in the Royals and Robin Yount in the Brewers. Their timelines overlap pretty symmetrically through their whole careers, MVPs, Hall of Fame. So it's a nice, fun rivalry to watch through this entire timeline. And in this particular year, it's the 80 Yount card that bests the 80 Brett card, though historically we know that the 80 Brett card is better. He hit 390 in 1980. Didn't help them. The Royals pitching turned out to be dreadful this year, and they finished 14-17. And so the Brewers win this division. Unfortunately, they cannot get a bye in the playoffs. 19-10, a deserving record, but they miss by a game or so. of getting a bye, and they're the number 3 seed. And out west, and you're going to see here, California wins the division. They would win the division in 1979, lose the league championship series. We know in 1982, they also lose the league championship series. The pieces are in place. They do have Ryan, Nolan Ryan, Frank Tanana, Don Baylor, Bobby Grich, Brian Downing, guys like that. So they win the division here. The number 2 seed, great record, not taking anything away from it. And the Mariners, unbelievably, they're the team that gets that second wild card spot, or the first wild card spot, 3 games over 500. Better than the Twins and the Tigers and Orioles that you saw. But a lot of this winning is because they're beating up these 2 teams. So what's happened here in this particular division, remember we talked about Toronto? Let's go look up real quick. You got 3 highly competitive teams beating up on only one team, and they're not beating up on them. Look at Toronto, 15 and 17. They're holding their own. Better than the Royals, better than the White Sox, better than the Rangers and the A's. The Rangers and A's, you can blame this on bad drafting by the commissioner here. Didn't do a great job with these teams, didn't make them competitive enough apparently. And they would get beaten up by the Angels and the Mariners. And so you get a highly questionable Mariner roster getting into the playoffs, while a better roster in New York does not get in. As a matter of fact, Seattle finishes better than the Orioles, so they get a better playoff seed. So we're not seeing it as far as roster composition, but that's the fun part of the Fall League. You play in your division more than in any other baseball league. Probably 30 to 34, 90% of your battles are within the division, and every once in a while you're going to see 2 doormats and 2 teams rising above. And if you look at the history here, history would say the Yankees should be in the playoffs. It should say the Kansas City Royals should be in the playoffs. But we're seeing an expansion team get in. We're seeing a legitimate expansion team, the 1977 Mariners team, get in way sooner than they ever did traditionally. And that has to do with the kind of the scheduling and the small sample size that the Fall League is about. And I kind of like that. It's a lot different here. It's a lot more laid back, and it's a looser competitive nature. And I kind of encourage the upsets, putting rosters together, and I kind of look for that in the Fall League. Whereas in the Summer League that I play, as far as scheduling, drafting, everything like that, I try and follow along with Major League Baseball history as best as I can, and I hope to have a result that's kind of similar. But in the Fall League, anything can happen. Let's take a look at the National League before we go to the individual details. Start in the National League East. Similar situation we just saw in the American League West. Sure, Philadelphia and the Marlins have good years, but really it's the Braves and the Mets had bad years. That's more of a they're minus 12 here, and they're plus 11 here. They lose a game to the National League North in this division played across. So the Marlins kind of stole a playoff spot, but they're a good team. They're a good roster. Short sample size players. A player is good 1 out of 4 years. Those maxims. If everybody's hitting at the same time, you get a story like this. Does it happen year in and year out? Probably not. But you're going to have 1 out of 4 years, the Marlins might put a great team together, and they did. The Phillies match their pedigree. They're supposed to be good in this timeline, and they satisfied that. They got a number 2 seed in the National League. Let's go to the Central. All right, 2 teams that are supposed to be here are Reds, Pirates. Tough sledding for the Cardinals. It's really, this whole decade is set up. They're not set up for success at all, because you got the Reds and the Pirates hogging up a lot of talent, and you pretty much have to hope, and you only finished a game and a half, the Cardinals did, behind the Pirates. So you pretty much have to hope for something like that one of these 2 teams gets into a slump and you steal their playoff spot. Because the Reds were in the National League West, and the Pirates are competing against the Phillies in the East. Now you got them both together here, a dynamic duo here, and it's going to be hard for the Cardinals and almost impossible for the Cubs during the 70s. But the Reds and the Pirates, in a bit of rivalry, bitter rivalry here, Pirates had to beat the Reds in the final series of the year to get into the playoffs and steal the number 6 seed away from the Diamondbacks. Not only did they do that, but they knocked the Reds out of a 2 spot to the 3 spot. So what does it mean? It means that the Reds now have to play the wild card game, and the Phillies have the day off, and they play each other again. So the Pirates and the Reds will go for Game 11 against each other. And that should be a wild, crazy game. The 11th matchup of the year between the Pirates and the Reds. Mountain Division, usually only one team goes. And in this case, the Colorado Rockies get the lowest seed, division winner. The Diamondbacks are the team that missed out by the Pirates on that spot. But again, they just finished at 500. And the other two teams aren't very distinguishable. Not much to say here, as any team will win this division, of course. 4 expansion teams, somebody has to go to the playoffs every year. And they usually get into the wild card round and not much further. Which brings us to the end, to the National League West, where we finally have, very similar to the Ohio players, the Astros, however, had much tougher competition, and they just routed this division. They routed them 6-game lead over 3 teams who were stumbling as equally, who were just beating each other up along the way. Dodgers, they're supposed to be in the playoffs during this timeline, and they're not. Astros did make the playoffs in 1980, but I've always had great luck with the Astros and Strat. I've always put this team together with great starting pitching, a great bullpen, and again they have Cesar Cedeno, Jose Cruz, Denny Walling. They always have a good Strat-O-Matic team, and it's no different here. I just have really great luck with them. What can I say? And that's what you have. You've got a Philly team who's here. The Reds and Pirates are here. The Astros are here. And then, of course, joining them would be, interestingly, the 2 expansion teams that came into existence at the same time. The Florida Marlins and the Colorado Rockies. Whereas the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Rays, they're not. Came along a little bit later. So that's your playoff rundown. Let's look at the playoff schedule in a different video here, or a different spreadsheet here. Let me enlarge this so it's a little easier to see here. Starting in the American League, we'll move this over a little bit here. So, let's see, we have to do this. Okay. And go all the way over. Okay. All right. So, games 40 and 42 were played. This is the end of the regular season right here. So, all the teams have a day off right there in this black. Then the wild card game is played for the teams, then a day off, and then the playoffs will continue with the divisional round, which is a best of 5, with a day off between games 4 and 5. Then you have your league championship series as a traditional 7-game series, the day off after game 4, and the World Series has days off after games 2 and 5. So let's back up to the wild card. A couple notes here. The Chicago White Sox are winners of the Commissioner Award for roster utilization with a score of 1344. Let's go take a peek at that over here. This is a fun little project I do. And I'll show you how this works. Showed it in previous videos. So the Commissioner Award, what it does is it creates a factor of you getting players to appear in games by innings pitched and at-bats. It factors the fewest innings pitched by the pitcher on your team and the fewest at-bats. Creates that factor, and the factor is compared against the other teams in the league. And the team who has the highest factor wins this commissioner award, and that means that they get an extra draft pick in the following draft between the first and second rounds. Looks like a compensation pick like the NFL draft does. The results are here. These numbers here are the factors for all the teams. And the runaway winner this year for roster utilization is the Chicago White Sox. 1,344 points. Easily winning this award. It turns out that they were a close to 500 team, which means they maxed out the number of games they would play. They used their bullpen a lot versus a beleaguered starting rotation. And they had 12 hitters that they worked through their lineup quite frequently. And the runners-up would have been a 970-point team here, which was the Cardinals. Couldn't quite overcome the White Sox. And so let's go take a peek at the White Sox. How did they come up with 1,344 points? I'm going to explain that here. We'll go look at the White Sox team. Look at their year-to-date stats. So the White Sox finished 13-20. That's 33 of a possible 34 games they would have played. And they also, in heartbreaking fashion, lost most of those because they finished 7 under 500. So they lost 3-4, or excuse me, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3, 2-3. You know, something like that, pretty much all year long. Your 1,344 factor, you look at the pitching, all the starters have well over 40 innings. The relievers, you got Larry LeGros, Ed Farmer, Andy Hassler, and Mike Marshall, all at 21 or 21 1/3 or 21 2/3. So 21 is you multiply by the fewest at-bats, and you look at the hitters, and you've got a bunch of guys with 66, 65, 64. You have a Greg Pryor with 64 at-bats, so 21 times 64 should be that number, 1,344. So if you want all your pitchers to pitch 21 innings and all your hitters to hit 64 at-bats, that's what the White Sox did. Most teams don't do that. Just in comparison, I'm looking right here at the Twins. Their bullpen is about 12 innings, 56 at-bats for a hitter. The Royals, 12 innings, 57 at-bats. You get the idea. So it wasn't particularly close. The White Sox win the Commissioner Award. So I put a note there, and I will also make a notation when draft time comes. So, in the wild card game, I've indicated a bye for California and a bye for the Ohio players. And then these are your 4 wild card pitchers. The first game to be played will be Seattle at Boston, the 5-4. Seattle's going to send Floyd Bannister to the mound, their ace from this timeline. Really the first Seattle pitcher to emerge before getting traded to the White Sox, Floyd Bannister. He will go against Louis Tiant. They're going to use Tiant in the wild card game, and they'll probably have Bill Lee, the Red Sox would, in the divisional series, assume they win. Tiant pitched in Game 7 of the World Series last year. Then you have the Orioles, number 6, at Milwaukee. And the Orioles had a choice between a couple lefties and Dennis Martinez. And they scouted out the Milwaukee Brewers and realized that they destroy left-handed pitching. So they went with Dennis Martinez, a very good pitcher. One of his best, pretty much his best year with the Orioles before he moves on to better things with the Expos and the Indians. But Dennis Martinez will take them out against Mike Caldwell, having the year of his life. He'll pitch in the wild card game. Had they won the division, he would have had a day off and been the number 1 starter. But because it's a wild card game, they're going with the best the Brewers have, and Caldwell is it. In the National League, we have Houston with a bye, Philadelphia with a bye. And in those wild card games, the first game, number 5, Florida, at number 4, Colorado. Florida's going to send Vern Rule out there because their number 1 starter, number 2 starter just pitched. They maxed out their pitchers at the end of the regular season. They only had a single day off. So Rule is the next eligible guy to go. So he's actually their number 4 starter. So Florida's not in prime shape with that move, but they have nobody else they can do in this spot. Rule also has good stats during the regular season, so that was one of the considerations. And Colorado will send their number 2 starter, Larry McWilliams. Hopefully, in Colorado's mind, Florida doesn't destroy lefties, though. I do recall them having some. So this is the wildest of the wild card games, Florida, Colorado. And your final and most interesting wild card game is the Reds and Pirates will duke it out for the 6th consecutive day, or 6th consecutive game. And the Reds, what they did was Seaver got knocked out early in the final game of the year against Candelaria. He could pitch an inning if needed. Mario Soto could pitch a couple innings. Plus, they have their entire bullpen. So they're going to look at this as all hands on deck at home in Riverfront, starting with a lefty because the Pirates aren't very good against lefties. And it's the same matchup we had over here in Game 3. Joe Price and Jim Rooker had a pitcher's duel in Game 3. And the Reds at home are hoping for similar results, holding down the Pirates. And like I said, the Pirates won the series 3-2 the last time they played. The Reds are hoping of a split of 6 games that would get them into the divisional round. So Jim Rooker versus Joe Price in a rematch in the final game of the year between the Reds and Pirates. That's your playoff schedule. Let's take a look at the stats here now. And to do that, we'll go back to the spreadsheet and we'll look at the overall hitting. The sort of baseball teams with batting average. Deserving Detroit at 295 and missed the playoffs by a game. As did the Arizona Diamondbacks. Missed it by a game. 295 and 293. Top hitting teams in baseball did not make the playoffs by a single game. That's a shame. Here's your Ohio players. Hit 289 in the American League. But they really combine hitting and pitching. You see, when you look at Detroit and Arizona, look at team ERAs over 4. Ohio can do it both ways, hitting and pitching. Then as far as playoff teams go, the Marlins are here, and the Astros are here, and then the Pirates. You see the Kansas City Royals with George Brett, of course. They had a great year hitting, as you would expect. Team ERA really hurt the Royals. At the bottom of the batting, the Orioles. This is probably why they limped into that playoff spot. Great pitching, but the batting average is 12 points below the next closest team. Unbelievable. Bad. They're very lucky to have gotten that last playoff spot because they hit a lot better than that. They've got a bunch of 260, 270 hitters. Look at the Red Sox. 252? Look at the Phillies, 255. So this is supposed to be an era of hitting because of 390 Brett, 398 Roger Freed, 395 Manny Mota, 388 Rod Carew, 370 Perkins. But my goodness, the Red Sox and Phillies, the World Series teams a year ago, are only hitting 255 and 252 with a full-time DH. Look, the Mets, the dreadful Mets, they actually out-hit the World Series teams from a year ago. Incredible. And of course, there's the Dodgers and their struggles, 258. Let's look at the ERA. Well, that's where your Phillies were magnificent. Steve Carlton anchoring the staff. Excellent bullpen. Best bullpen in baseball, and Steve Carlton, that's a lethal combination. They have a nice little combination of power and speed, too, in their offense, even though they're hitting poorly. Of course, you see the Astros pitching, the Orioles pitching, and the surprising Red Sox pitching. Surprising, it was surprised just in the Summer League. It does it again in the Fall League. Louis Tiant and Bill Lee do great. Here's your Ohio players coming out of nowhere, hitting and pitching. 289. And look at this Padre team. What a weird outlier that is. So they have got a good batting average and they got a good ERA. So why did they not make the playoffs? They only had 17 homers maybe. So you see some good pitching performances. So what happened at the bottom? Yep. Kansas City Royals, 5.11 ERA. That'll knock you out of the playoffs every year. Arizona missed the playoffs by a whisker. Team area 501. So that's your team stats. And now lastly, we're going to do the individual awards, and we're going to see some surprises. Let's go scroll all the way up to the top. I think you need 100 at-bats to qualify for the batting title. So Tim Foley hit 400, but it's only 85 at-bats. We'll give it to Ron LaFleur for the American League. If there was an all-star game, he'd be your starter. 383, give him the batting crown. Homers and stolen bases are nice. And then you're going to see Carew, 364. We're going to dress down all those 370 hitters, right? So you got 364 Carew hit 20 some points below his average. Brett hit like 50 points below his average. And we'll go to those National League hitters when we go to the National League. As far as looking at MVP performances, oddly enough, Brett has a nice homer RBI here. But we didn't go, we went with a pitching MVP, which is very rare, but we did in both leagues this year. But let's keep scrolling down and look at your American League Rookie of the Year. So Ricky Henderson, 319 plus the walks, plus 23 stolen bases. He gets to be your American League Rookie of the Year. We're going to go to the National League hitting because the story to tell will be the pitching. So they'll just go through the National League really quickly. Bill Buckner. So he has his 1980 card. He did lead the National League in hitting in 1980, and he leads this league in hitting with a 409 average. All right, so going back to those hitters, Roger Freed hit 398 on his card. Now you can't blame him for hitting 371. It's only 27 points difference, so I'm not going to, look at that. We also have Manny Mota hitting 395 and Broderick Perkins. We'll take a look at those guys. Looking for an MVP hitter, the problem with Watson, you have Bob Watson and Steve Garvey. Bob Watson on a first place team, 363, 425. Look at Steve Garvey, 358, 730. In some ways, I had that cancel each other out because I know Garvey is the Gold Glove first baseman, and statistically he has a little bit more, but he's on the last place team, and Watson's team won the division. So in some ways, I consider that to cancel each other out. For looking for an MVP candidate. The other dominant team in the National League would be the Phillies and the Reds. They don't really have a dominant hitter up here anywhere. My Rookie of the Year in the National League is the 1980 Pedro Guerrero card, which hits 322. And he hit 326, 316, and 129 at bats. Just a devastating card. So he's your Rookie of the Year. And there were some other MVP candidates. Willie Stargell, the RBI total is a little bit lower than I'd like. I think you have Ellis Valentine, which would have been a nice MVP candidate, but his Arizona team did not make the playoffs. He led the league in RBI with 39. He was deserving of an MVP, but I didn't feel that it would be right with him. Let's go to the pitching. We'll start in the National League pitching. Your National League pitching, and this tells the story. So some really good performances here. J.R. Richard led the league in ERA, $1.63. His card is $1.84. He just needed to pitch more. For some reason, the Astros were getting through their series pretty quickly. He only had 55 innings. The top two workhorses in the league were Tom Seaver and Steve Carlton. Seaver was probably winning this award, or tying for winning the award, at 7-1. But he could not beat the Pirates in the last 5 games, which was a real shame because he pitched brilliantly. His team let him down. He went 9 2/3 innings and an extra inning loss, complete game. he's by percentage points better than Carlton, but Carlton gets my MVP consideration. He's my MVP of the National League. I'll give the Cy Young, just to spread the awards around, I'll give the Cy Young and Fireman of the Year to different guys. But Steve Carlton's going to be the MVP of the league. He leads the league in wins, 8-1. He was a difference between the Phillies being the number 2 seed and the Reds falling to a number 3 seed. The fact that he's a little bit better than Seaver is, yeah, there you go. I mean, the top pitcher 1980 and Seaver, arguably the top pitcher in 1977, both pitched brilliantly. Carlton gets the nod by a handful of votes, let's call it. But your Cy Young winner is a surprise. Got to scroll down. I had to do it. Bruce Sutter. I had to give the Cubs something. So Bruce Sutter gets the National League Cy Young because he was perfect. He had 18 2/3 innings, was not touched at all, and could only rack up 7 saves for a Cubs team that won 8 games. I mean, you know, so yeah, if he was available, all the top playoff teams would have him at the back of the bullpen. Arguably the best relief pitcher in this timeline. The Fireman of the Year for quantity of saves, 8, is Dave Laroche. And actually, that's kind of cool for him as well, because his ERA is 52 cents. Really, Laroche gave up 1 run, and Sutter gave up 0. So, 1 run difference. I got to give Dave Laroche something, so he gets the Fireman of the Year for an extra save. The American League awards are pretty similar in pitching, oddly enough. And it's this guy at the top of the charts. Mike Caldwell was 7-0 with a 1.83 ERA, one of 2 pitchers in the American League. An Ohio player pitcher was also below 2. He doesn't get any hardware. But Caldwell, I remember that every time he pitched, we loaded up with right-handed batters because he dominates lefties and is just okay against righties. It didn't matter. The right-handed dominant lineups he faced, he held them in check all year. He was their difference, pretty much, that a great pitcher from Milwaukee, while the Kansas City Royals didn't have very good pitching at all. So Caldwell gets your Cy Young Award. But your MVP is for the new team on the block, the Ohio players. And it's Mike Norris. Pitched a few more innings than Caldwell. You see the gap in ERA. But he gets an MVP because of the team. The Ohio player team, an expansion team that wins 21 games. I had to figure out who was the best guy on the team. And it really was a spread around offensively. I couldn't find a hitter to give him the MVP to. And as far as pitchers, Doc Ellis is also great with 4 wins and 37 innings. But Mike Norris, 72 innings here, leads the league in innings pitched, 1 blemish, almost got the Cy Young. I like it as MVP even more so, as he's the biggest reason why this Ohio players team is where they are. And then we have a Fireman of the Year award coming up, I believe, and that'll be a wrap for things. Mike Marshall had 7 saves but a high ERA. Here it is. The Seattle Mariners, remember the wild card team, the surprise wild card team? Their closer, Unique Romo, there's nobody like him, Enrique Romo, 14 1/3 innings with a 63-cent ERA and 7 saves. Good to see a Seattle player get some hardware. You could argue him and Floyd Bannister were the reason why they snuck in and stole that last playoff spot. That's been the review of the Fall League. Hope you're enjoying it. We'll broadcast all of the wild card games, and then after that it's the Divisional, League Championship, and World Series. All to be wrapped up by Super Bowl Sunday, we believe. Thanks for checking it out. We'll see you next time.